In the lively chatter of a tavern, a young man named Gail Hamilton, a curse crafter, diligently sketches in his notebook. He's filled with optimism, planning to forge a new item with recently acquired materials that he hopes will improve his party's teamwork. Suddenly, his concentration is broken when a teammate calls his name, followed by a voice saying, "I'm sorry, but we're terminating your contract," leaving him utterly bewildered. A fond memory of Gale happily crafting armor stands in stark contrast to the cold reality now before him. His world is shattered as he faces his party. The confrontation continues at a tavern table where Kush Bilbor, the party's paladin, leans in and screams, "You're fired!" directly at a stunned Gale. While Gale struggles to process the words, his other party members show no sympathy. One of the women, Melissa, can't even contain her amusement, snickering into her hand at his misfortune. Kush mocks Gale for his confusion, reminding him that it's been 3 years since they formed the party. He belittles Gale's role as a curse crafter, calling it the worst support job ever, and dismissing his contributions as mere monster debuffs with one-time use cursed junk. To add insult to injury, he points out Gale's low level of 31 as the final justification for his uselessness. Gale desperately tries to defend his worth, arguing that his items have been crucial to their success and aren't simple consumables. He presents a special necklace designed to passively affect monsters, but his teammates recoil in disgust, calling it gross. Kush smugly shuts him down, declaring that as an S-rank party, they are now far too good for his cursed crap. The reason for Gale's expulsion is then revealed: a new support mage named Maura. She is introduced as a master of both buff and debuff skills, a seemingly superior replacement. The rest of the party immediately fawns over their new, pretty teammate, welcoming her warmly, as Kush smirks at Gale, rubbing salt in the wound. The other party members, Norris the Black Mage, Melissa the Light Fighter, and Luke the Thief, join in the humiliation, taunting Gale for not anticipating his own dismissal. Gale, completely blindsided, can only stammer in disbelief that this is coming out of nowhere. The camaraderie he once knew has completely evaporated, replaced by cruel mockery. Kush delivers the final, heartless verdict: "We don't need you around any longer." Gale stands isolated as the whispers of other patrons fill the air, judging him as a low-level burden on a high-rank party. The weight of their words hits him hard, and he begins to question if this painful outcome was always inevitable. In a final desperate plea, Gale begs for one more chance, revealing he has a stock of powerful cursed items he was hesitant to use. He looks to his former comrades for any sign of reconsideration, but is met only with cold, impassive stares. Their expressions make it painfully clear that their decision is final. Gale asks Kush if he's certain he won't regret this decision, to which the paladin confidently replies, "Positive." A montage of happy memories flashes through Gale's mind. Their early days brings tears to his eyes, their successful quests, the bond he thought they shared, the realization that his dream of being with the Wolfpack for good is over. The party's cruelty continues as they mock his future prospects, suggesting he open a curse shop. Each member chimes in with a parting insult, solidifying their betrayal. Defeated and heartbroken, Gale can only accept his fate. With quiet dignity, Gale walks away from the table, murmuring, "Great working with you." Once he's out of sight, however, his composure shatters. He fumes about the years of work he put in, the personal funds he used for their ingredients, and the ultimate betrayal of being cast aside after everything he did for them. Gale glances back at his former party, laughing without him. Just as he is about to leave town, a new resolve hardens his features as he decides to undo this. He reveals a secret: he had been secretly enchanting their gear, providing them with buffs they were completely unaware of all this time. Holding up a special talisman, Gale chants the word "Dispel." A brilliant flash of magic erupts from the charm, the force of the spell clearly taking a toll on his body, and the powerful backlash sends him flying backward. He slumps to the ground. Gale explains the truth behind his support. The cursed gear he provided secretly boosted his party's abilities, but this came at a cost. The negative side effects and stat drains were all transferred to him. He bore their burdens to make them stronger. Panting heavily from the recoil, Gale feels an incredible weight lift from his shoulders. As the magic settles, he realizes he had been shouldering a 20% stat reduction from each of his S-rank party members. Checking his own status, he sees his true level is a staggering 148, with immense stats and thousands of unspent points that had been suppressed until now. An innkeeper finds him sitting on the floor and briskly tells him to leave. As he gets up, Gale reflects on his newly restored power, noting that his stats are incredibly high for a support job, far surpassing even Kush, the party's main tank. The true disparity in their power is now clear to him. Now free but broke, Gale wanders through the town's market square, contemplating his next move. He realizes that, ironically, having his own store has always been a quiet dream of his. The party's mocking suggestion to open a curse shop echoes in his mind. He pictures a peaceful life running a small tool shop, free to create what he wants and live on his own terms. With a newfound sense of purpose, Gale walks through a snowy path, embracing his freedom. The heavy burden of his former party is gone, replaced by the promise of a future he controls. Fully embracing his new path with a bright, hopeful smile, a wave of genuine excitement washes over Gale as he raises a triumphant fist to the sky. He decides to set up a stall to earn travel expenses. The scene transitions to the Silver Wolf Inn, preparing to show the aftermath for his former party. Meanwhile, back at the Silver Wolf Inn, the Wolfpack celebrates Gale's absence. They toast to their relief and that they had spoiled him for too long, callously remarking that they should have replaced him sooner. The new mage, Maura, listens to their chatter with a neutral expression as Kush smugly recounts how Gale used to give them so-called good luck charms. A massive, intricate set of magic circles suddenly materializes over their table. Their gear begins to glow with an intense, otherworldly light, startling the entire party. The party is left stunned and confused by the sudden magical event. And now, Maura, her eyes wide with surprise, recognizes the nature of the spell, identifying it as a dispel. The brilliant light from their gear erupts in a powerful flash before dissipating completely, leaving an eerie silence. The party members immediately feel the effects of the dispel. The black mage's magic feels weaker, and the thief feels heavier. Maura, observing the scene, is perplexed, noting that it was a high-powered dispel and wondering what could have caused it. Instantly, the party's suspicion falls on Gale, assuming this is some kind of petty retaliation for being fired. Luke, the thief, seethes with anger, wishing he had killed Gale when he had the chance. Maura, however, remains thoughtful, sensing that there is more to this situation than simple revenge. Maura logically deduces that a dispel spell wouldn't harm them unless it was removing a positive effect. Since it affected all of them simultaneously, it means the original caster was undoing his own widespread curse. With this reasoning, she concludes that Gale likely meant them no harm. Maura tries to explain her reasoning, but Kush arrogantly dismisses her. He pulls rank as the party leader and declares that Gale is their enemy, period. He curtly tells her to learn her place and how the Wolfpack operates, leaving Maura shocked by his refusal to listen. Norris plans to toast him with magic. The rest of the party quickly falls back into their arrogant bravado, plotting violent revenge for their next encounter with Gale, while Luke threatens to gruesomely cut off his fingers. Their casual cruelty and overconfidence are on full display for a disturbed Maura to witness. Maura replays the moment of the dispel in her mind. She recalls feeling a slight magical shift in herself. Maura replays the moment of the dispel in her mind, but sensed a dramatic drop in the stats of her new teammates. She comes to a shocking realization. They must have been operating under a constant, powerful buff this whole time. Though she tries to dismiss it as her imagination, Maura can't shake the feeling. She knows curse crafters aren't supposed to be able to apply buffs, but the evidence is undeniable. The thought begins to form that if Gale could create such items, he wasn't just any curse crafter, he was the first of his kind. The question, but what if he did, hangs in Maura's mind as she watches her bickering, oblivious teammates. The full weight of the possibility settles in, challenging everything she knows about her profession. She looks on as the others continue their petty squabbles, completely unaware of her internal crisis. Maura's contemplation deepens as she questions the very foundation of the party's strength. She wonders aloud in her thoughts if the Wolfpack even qualifies as an S-rank team without the power of the Cursecrafter they just abandoned. The image of Gail's departing back is juxtaposed with this damning question. Kush, completely unaware of their predicament, brushes off any lingering concerns about Gail. To boost morale, he redirects the party's attention to their bright future. By announcing their first official S-rank quest, the team erupts in cheers, excited to prove their supposedly immense power. The quest is revealed: to take down a behemoth, a terrifying disaster-class monster. The party raises their mugs in a triumphant toast. Only Maura looks on with dread, her eyes wide with the horrifying realization of just how unprepared they truly are. They had no idea what their former Cursecrafter was truly capable of, nor did they understand their own inflated and fragile strength. Reflecting on the party's profound ignorance at that moment, Maura narrates from a future perspective. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to Gail, now free, comically chasing a small owl-like creature that stole his necklace, his problems now simple and his own. In a simple, sparse room, Gail sits lost in thought, a pen hovering over a letter he is writing. His brow is furrowed in concentration, the quiet solitude, a stark contrast to the adventuring life he once knew, a silent testament to a journey just beginning. Deep within a sun-dappled forest, the Wolfpack makes its way through the trees. A cautious Luke questions the wisdom of bringing a newcomer on an S-rank quest right away, but the others are full of confidence. They place their faith in their new support mage, Maura, believing her reputation will see them through. The party's cheerful banter comes to an abrupt halt as they spot their target. Kush, with a smirk of arrogance playing on his lips, declares it perfect for a warm-up. A hulking, brutish ogre lumbering between the trees. With a quiet thud, the creature emerges from the woods, its immense size casting a long shadow over the confident group. The party's warrior, Kush, his face a mask of fierce determination, braces for the fight. The battle erupts with a ferocious roar from the ogre, its voice shaking the very leaves on the trees. In the chaos, Luke knocks and fires, but the arrows thwack harmlessly against the creature's thick hide, doing little more than annoying it. As Melissa cries out, unable to control her wild shots against the surprisingly agile beast, with a casual, brutal swipe, the ogre sends her flying, her body crashing hard against the ground. In the same motion, Luke is disarmed, his bow snapping under the monster's overwhelming strength as he cries out in frustration. Kush turns his fury not on the monster but on his own black mage, demanding to know how much longer his chanting will take. Norris, the mage, pleads for just another moment as a complex magic circle forms at his fingertips. But his grand spell fizzles into a pathetic, tiny flame that pops harmlessly into existence, earning a look of utter contempt from his leader. Kush narrowly evades a crushing blow from the ogre's makeshift club, saved only by a quick-thinking Melissa, who yanks him to safety. Barely escaping death, he immediately redirects his anger towards Maura, the new support mage. "What the hell are you doing?" he screams, demanding she hurry up and cast some buffs to turn the tide of their disastrous fight. "I have been, this whole time," Maura shouts back, her voice filled with desperation and exhaustion. An overhead view reveals the truth of her words. Every member of the party has been standing within a glowing magic circle. Clenching her staff, she cries out that she is almost completely out of mana from the constant effort of supporting them all. Summoning the last of her strength, Maura slams her staff into the ground, unleashing a brilliant wave of power. That surges through her teammates. "There. I've doubled your stats," she pants, urging them to finish the A-rank monster quickly. Feeling the buff course through him, Kush's confidence returns with a vengeance as he dashes forward, roaring that he's going to crush the beast. With his stats doubled, Kush charges the ogre, his sword held high as he bellows, "Prepare to die, you pathetic monster." The ogre, seemingly unimpressed, mumbles a simple, almost childlike challenge to play. With a final cry of determination, Kush swings his massive blade, certain that this powerful blow will finally end the fight. In a shocking display of power, the ogre stops Kush's mighty blow with a single, open hand, all while casually picking its nose with the other. The paladin's confident expression shatters into one of pure disbelief as his ultimate attack is rendered useless. Before he can even process what happened, the monster effortlessly tosses him aside like a discarded toy. Kush slams into the ground, defeated and humiliated, his amplified strength proving utterly insufficient. He immediately turns on Maura, screaming that she's a useless failure whose buffs are a joke. Maura, her face a mask of fury, fires back, reminding him of his own arrogant words, that they were saving buffs for the real fight against the behemoth. "Fine," Maura declares, her patience finally snapping as she rummages through her belongings. She pulls out a strange, cone-shaped item left to her by the party's previous member, Gail. As she prepares to use the debuff item, Kush lunges forward, grabbing her arm and shouting for her to stop, recognizing it as one of Gail's cursed creations. Kush insists that one of Gail's cursed items will be useless, but his words trigger a memory for Maura. She recalls the letter Gail left her, detailing the party's habits and how they always relied on him to debuff enemies before they would even engage. In that moment, she understands the true reason for their current struggle. Maura throws the item down in frustration, her revelation left unspoken. Kush, searching for any excuse for their failure, immediately blames their weakness on a curse from Gail's dispel spell from the day before. The other party members, eager to deflect responsibility, quickly latch onto the idea, agreeing that it must be Gail's fault. With a convenient scapegoat found, the party's resolve crumbles, and they begin calling for a retreat, hurling insults at the absent Gail. Kush, however, stubbornly refuses, his pride as an S-rank adventurer wounded by the thought of retreating from a mere ogre. His teammates plead with him, arguing they can't fight properly while under Gail's supposed curse. Calling it a strategic retreat, the party convinces their leader. Seeing the ogre has grown tired of waiting, Kush finally relents, dramatically activating a give-up mode and loudly announcing their withdrawal. He makes sure to declare that their failure is entirely the curse's fault, a statement that leaves Maura looking on in stunned silence. Kush turns to Maura, mockingly asking if she's giving up already, questioning her right to be in an S-rank party. She points out that while they are all injured, she is perfectly fine, having barely been in the fight. Seizing on this, the others decide she can act as the rear guard, leaving her to fend for herself. Synthesize narration. With a final, callous, "We're counting on you," the party flees, leaving alone Maura to face the monsters. As the sound of their footsteps fades, the hulking ogre and its smaller companions turn their full attention to the abandoned support mage. Alone and betrayed, Maura is left to deal with the consequences of her new party's cowardice. Maura trembles, not from fear, but from sheer rage as the leering ogre approaches. The monster's taunts are the final straw, and with a furious scream of "Morans!" she hurls one of Gail's cursed scrolls directly at the creature. The small, unassuming item glows with an ominous light as it flies through the air. The cursed item detonates in a massive, blinding explosion of smoke and magical energy that engulfs the forest clearing. In the heart of the blast, Maura stands defiant, shouting her disbelief at the party that abandoned her. Through the dissipating smoke, the heavy, thudding footsteps of a truly colossal beast begin to echo through the trees. Far from the battle, the members of the wolf pack catch their breath, collapsing against a tree in exhaustion. Kush grumbles in disgust, still fuming over being trounced by a simple ogre and immediately placing the blame on the new girl. He carelessly tosses a piece of his armor aside, declaring Maura to be completely useless. Synthesize narration. The party tries to rationalize their humiliating defeat, admitting something feels wrong and that they shouldn't be so exhausted from a short run. Melissa quickly agrees with Kush, blaming Maura with a petty and unrelated insult about her appearance. The other members can only sigh at the absurdity, pointing out how irrelevant her comment is. Norris, the Black Mage, admits that they were lacking finesse even before Maura cast her spells, sparking a bitter argument with his companions. Despite their bickering, they all settle on a single, convenient conclusion. It's all Gail's fault. Just as they cement their narrative, a panting Maura finally catches up to them, stepping out from the trees. Wheezing from exertion, Maura leans on her staff for support as she rejoins the party. Kush greets her with condescending praise for losing the ogre, but his tone shifts to confusion as he notices something she's dragging behind her. Peeking out from under her cloak is a small, goblin-like creature, its strange appearance prompting him to ask, "Who's this little guy?" Meanwhile, in the heart of a vibrant city, a cheerful Gael walks through a bustling market square. Carrying his large pack, he hums a happy tune, a wide, carefree smile on his face. He marvels at his newfound freedom and declares to himself that running a stall is far more fun than he ever imagined. Gail reflects on his business, wishing he could attract customers other than adventurers. Though his cursed items and dispel talismans are selling well, the general populace seems wary of his strange wares. As he scans the crowd, his eyes briefly land on a mysterious figure, their presence a fleeting, curious detail in the market's chaos. The guildmaster, with his distinctive pumpkin-shaped hat, approaches Gail's stall with a friendly greeting. After hearing that business is good, Gail mentions he's thinking of changing his location. A knowing twinkle appears in the guildmaster's eye as he leans in, an intriguing proposition on his mind. The guildmaster's suggestion is a bold one, a stall right in the noble's district. The scene shifts to an immaculate, wide street lined with elegant architecture and populated by the city's elite. For Gail, this pristine, affluent world represents a completely new and untapped market. Gail's mind races with the possibilities, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. He imagines the wealthy nobles who value fashion and decorative appeal, falling in love with his unique, grotesque designs. His imagination runs wild with visions of becoming a trendsetter, perhaps even designing for the royal castle itself, and he lets out a triumphant, villainous laugh. A fleeting memory of a creepy, bloodshot-eyed adventurer at his old stall reminds Gail why a change of scenery might be for the best. He shakes off the unsettling thought, ready to embrace his new opportunity and sell with all his might. As he prepares his stall, he's momentarily startled by a strange figure peeking at him from behind a nearby building. From the shadows of an alleyway, a young woman with elegant features and light-flowing hair peeks around a corner. Her expression is serious and focused as she watches Gail's stall from a distance. Her gaze is intense, suggesting a purpose far deeper than that of a casual window shopper. The guildmaster dramatically unrolls a map of the coveted central plaza, slamming his hand down to reveal the exorbitant daily rent, 4 gold coins. He explains that such a popular and high-traffic area commands a steep price, a fact that lands with crushing weight on Gail. A close-up on Gail's hand reveals his entire fortune, a mere 3 silver coins, highlighting the impossible gap between his ambition and his reality, forcing him to sheepishly inquire about a cheaper alternative. Gazing out at the sprawling city square, a vibrant sea of countless people, Gail takes in the sheer scale of the royal capital. The vast open plaza represents both an immense opportunity and a daunting challenge for a newcomer like him. With a quiet sigh of acceptance, he makes his decision, resolving to start small and take the more affordable path that lies before him. Gail stands before his new stall, a rather humble and worn-looking setup assembled from a used kit generously provided by the kind guildmaster. The man had wished him well, noting his inexperience, and gifted him the My First Booth kit. While Gale acknowledges that the booth is a bit dingy, his spirit remains undampened, and with a cheerful smile he declares it's more than good enough for him. Behind the counter of his new stall, Gale begins to plan his inventory, deciding to sell his remaining cursed tools alongside some equipment fit for interior decorating. An expression of uncertainty crosses his face as he contemplates the tricky question of how to price his unique wares. Ultimately, he waves off his hesitation, concluding that as long as he can make up for the cost of materials, everything else will fall into place. Just as Gale is settling in, the guildmaster suddenly rushes back, exclaiming that he forgot to explain a crucial detail. Just as Gale is settling in, and declares the setup is simply no good. Before a surprised Gale can react, the man energetically smacks him aside, and, with a flurry of motion, begins to completely reorganize the display. In what feels like an instant, the dingy stall is transformed into a respectable, well-organized shop with wares neatly arranged on shelves and hung for all to see. The guildmaster wisely advises that a clean presentation is key, as customers who can't find what they're looking for won't buy. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Gale bows deeply, thanking the man for his help, and feeling genuinely touched by a kindness that feels worlds away from the scorn of his former party. As he prepares for the day, Gale thoughtfully removes a particularly grotesque, one-eyed monster head from his display. He admits to himself that he really likes the piece, but understands that sacrifices must be made to attract customers. With a final adjustment, he hangs a hook, takes a steadying breath, and braces himself for his very first day as a salesman. A wave of nervous energy washes over Gale as he gazes at the bustling crowd, his mind racing with doubts about how people will react to his cursed tools. He wonders if they'll accept them, or if anyone will even be willing to buy them. To shake off the fear, he slaps his cheeks, takes a deep, fortifying breath, and steels his resolve to face the challenge ahead. Summoning his courage, Gale projects his voice over the market's din, calling out to passers-by with offers of wares for adventurers and debuff items for cheap. His enthusiastic shouts manage to capture the attention of a few curious onlookers, including a pair of seasoned-looking adventurers who turn towards his stall with intrigued expressions. His first potential customers were now within reach. A female adventurer approaches, skeptically questioning the value of cursed tools when a mage's debuffs would surely be superior. Gale greets her and her companions with a welcoming smile, then launches into his sales pitch, explaining the unique advantages of his items. He illustrates how his tools can be used by anyone and don't consume precious mana, a point that visibly captures the interest of the small crowd now gathering at his stall. Another customer expresses disbelief at the price of deadly poison, 5 vials for a single copper coin, calling it cheap as hell. Gale cheerfully explains that since his wares are made from common monster drops and homemade toxins, his only real cost is labor, allowing him to pass the savings on. Prompting Gale to proudly showcase his wider variety of cursed items, this incredible deal convinces another man to make a purchase, each designed to inflict different status effects. A stoic man with dark hair inspects an ornate short sword, prompting Gale to eagerly detail its powerful enchantments. He explains that while it slightly lowers the user's agility, it compensates by inflicting an armor reduction effect on monster sand, boosting all other stats by 10%. But as he reveals the final, crucial detail, that the weapon is cursed, the customer flinches violently, nearly dropping the sword in shock. Visibly unsettled, the customer asks Gale to repeat himself, zeroing in on the fact that the item is cursed. Gale confirms it, prompting the man to scratch his head, and remark that while honesty is a virtue, no one in their right mind would knowingly buy a cursed item. A flustered Gale can only agree, before quickly recovering and suggesting its super cool design makes it a perfect piece of interior decor. The man contemplates the sword's design, admitting that he doesn't hate its grotesque aesthetic, and decides to buy it as a decoration to ward off evil spirits from his home. As Gale happily rings up the sale, he generously throws in 3 Dispel talismans as a complimentary gift, delighting the customer. This single transaction solidifies his winning sales strategy: be upfront about the curse, emphasize the benefits, and provide the solution for free. Gale mentally reviews his successful day, recalling how he sold one cursed item after another by being transparent about their nature while highlighting their incredible buffs. He sold a necklace that boosts stats by 50%, boots that increase agility by 150%, and a bowgun with perfect aim, always pairing the cursed item with free Dispel talismans. A brief moment of doubt crosses his mind as he remembers giving 5 Dispels to a man who would only use the item once a year, wondering if he might have been a bit too generous. As another customer inquires about a tool, Gale's thoughts drift to the legends he's heard about a famed hero. Those tales always spoke of the hero's companion, a mighty berserker who drew immense power from his cursed armor. This historical precedent reinforces the idea that cursed equipment, despite its ominous reputation, has long been a source of incredible strength for those brave enough to wield it. Gale realizes that his strategy is working perfectly. While the word curse initially repels people, his method overcomes their hesitation. By clearly explaining the curse's effect, providing a free and easy way to remove it, and emphasizing the powerful buffs, he turns a liability into a unique selling point. His stall is now mobbed with customers, many drawn by the spreading rumor that every purchase comes with free Dispel talismans. At the end of a long day, Gale's stall stands completely empty, his wares and display boxes all cleared out. He hoists his now light backpack, marveling that everything's sold, and reflects on the diverse cast of customers he met. He gives special thought to one particularly eccentric character named Death Metallic, who seemed to see a unique coolness in his cursed creations. Just as Gale is finishing packing up, a frantic crowd descends upon his stall, desperately asking if this is the place giving away Dispel talismans. When he regretfully informs them that he is completely sold out, the entire group collapses to the ground in a synchronized wave of despair. The unexpected and overwhelming popularity of the talismans leaves Gale utterly bewildered. The disappointed crowd immediately begins trying to bargain with Gale, offering to give him their own equipment if he'll just place a curse on it and provide them with the coveted Dispel talismans. Overwhelmed by their intense and rather strange requests, Gale promises to return the next day. Before making a hasty retreat, he dashes away, leaving the desperate customers behind. In a nearby tavern, an adventurer who bought one of Gale's cursed rings is goaded by his friend into trying it on. His friend jokingly warns him not to faint from the curse's fear effect. As he slips it onto his finger, the man is struck with awe, his eyes widening as he exclaims, "Holy shit, this is amazing," while his companions stare in shock at a glowing status display. The glowing status sheet reveals the unbelievable truth. The adventurer's stats have all skyrocketed by a full 50%. His friends are left speechless by the massive power boost gained from one tiny ring, as the others celebrate their incredible discovery. One of them astutely points out that if he never takes the ring off, the curse becomes irrelevant. The tavern buzzes with conversation about the stall, with adventurers noting how expensive it is to get a Dispel cast at the temple, making the free talismans an unprecedented deal. Someone quietly suggests they could make a killing by reselling the talismans, but is immediately shushed by a friend who warns of the temple priest's wrath. The imposing figures of these priests loom large in their minds, known for charging hefty gold coins for their services. The adventurer's praise shifts to Gale himself, hailing him as a ridiculously good cursificer whose skills would be an asset to any party. As they talk, the man wearing the powerful new ring grows thoughtful, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He murmurs that he feels like he's seen the young salesman somewhere before, though the memory remains just out of reach. The gossiping adventurers, caught up in their excitement, would never guess the truth about the talented Cursificer. They couldn't know he was the very same one who had, until recently, shouldered curses for 4 S-rank adventurers, sacrificing his own strength for their benefit. And they certainly wouldn't suspect that this man, recently expelled from his party, was now selling those same S-rank quality creations at bargain bin prices. From that day on, quiet rumors began to circulate through the royal city about an elusive Cursificer who would appear without warning, sell out his powerful wares, and vanish just as quickly. Back in his room, Gail peers out the window with a cheerful grin, jingling a full purse of coins. The satisfaction of a hard day's work and newfound success warms his heart. Before the story rewinds to reveal what became of his old party, just a few hours earlier, deep in a sun-dappled forest, the tranquil scene is shattered by a powerful strike. A massive tree splinters and crashes to the ground, with a deafening boom, sending birds scattering into the air. Kush, the paladin, is sent flying through the air, coughing up blood from a brutal impact. The members of the wolf pack are shown scattered and defeated, having been utterly overwhelmed in battle. As the others lie injured or watch in horror, they can only mutter in disbelief, questioning why their combined strength is failing so miserably. The members of the wolf pack are shown scattered and defeated, having been utterly overwhelmed in battle. Struggling to his feet, Kush leans heavily on his greatsword, his face a mask of confusion and frustration. "This doesn't make any sense," he gasps, unable to reconcile their failure with their status as an S-rank party. In the distance, the colossal, shadowy form of their enemy effortlessly drags a massive boulder. Its immense power, a stark and terrifying contrast to their own weakness. Their adversary is revealed to be a monstrous, hulking ogre which lets loose a deafening roar that shakes the very ground. Standing before the behemoth, the once arrogant paladin appears small and powerless. In a voice laced with desperation and rage, Kush screams, "Why can't we defeat this guy?" as the party's confidence finally and completely crumbles. A flashback reveals the harrowing truth of Maura's delay. Just as the party fled, the cursed tool wore off, and the shrunken ogre explosively returned to its terrifying, massive form. Maura's screams of fury echo through the forest as she berates her cowardly teammates for abandoning her. Kush, already in full retreat, callously shouts back that taking care of the rear guard was her job. Faced with the colossal beast, the party's bravado shatters into a chaotic mess of blame and panic. One member shoves Melissa towards the monster, claiming women are a tastier meal, while another desperately tries to flee. A revelation that sends the entire group scrambling away in a desperate, disorganized retreat. The ogre, however, looks on with a sad expression, forlornly stating that he's a vegetarian. 4 days later, the scene shifts to an inn, where the wolf pack is slumped around a table, the picture of utter defeat. Filthy, exhausted, and stinking, they complain amongst themselves about needing water and a bath. Their collective stench is so potent that it fills the entire room, a testament to their miserable journey back from the forest. From across the room, another patron points out the pathetic group, rudely demanding service from the innkeeper. His arrogant complaint about the poor service rings hollow in the face of his party's wretched condition. To the innkeeper, remarking that their sorry state is their own fault. Oblivious to the chatter, Kush impatiently slams his fist on the table. The innkeeper approaches their table and calmly places a single glass of water before them, stating she isn't running a charity. The party erupts in indignation, questioning what kind of treatment this is for heroes like them. Her reply is sharp and direct, informing them it's the kind of treatment reserved for lowlives who fail to pay their bill. Her reply is sharp and direct, informing them it's the kind of treatment reserved for lowlives who fail to pay their bill. The innkeeper coldly informs them their advance payment ran out yesterday, and they must pay for the extra day if they wish to stay. Kush puffs out his chest, declaring that as S-rank adventurers, they won't be looked down upon by a mere innkeeper. He orders his party to pay up, but a nervous sweat breaks out on their faces as they realize the truth of their situation. A quick inventory of their recent disastrous quest reveals the grim reality of their finances. Melissa's injuries required expensive beauty treatments and a new short sword. Norris lost his grimoire and had his gauntlets destroyed, and Kush's custom greatsword was completely ruined. The wolf pack is completely broke. The innkeeper's final assessment is blunt and undeniable. The innkeeper states the price: 5 silver for 1 day, 6 if they want a meal, as the party crams together, the weight of their poverty crushing them. Despite their predicament, Melissa brazenly swipes an ale from a passing waitress, an act of sheer audacity that leaves Kush gaping in disbelief. Maura, on the other hand, requests for an ale and something to eat. The party's frustration boils over into bitter infighting, with Norris accusing others of not contributing to their shared funds. Maura, who has been watching silently, steps in with a cold reminder of their own words. She firmly clutches her own purse, declaring that this money is hers and hers alone. They had promised the party's funds would come from the quest reward. Kush scoffs at her logic, smugly stating that their promise was contingent on actually completing the quest. Melissa, trying to intimidate her into sharing her money. In a flash, Melissa grabs Maura with a threatening, "What's yours is the party's." At the same time, another member lunges for Maura's purse, their desperation turning them against their own. The conflict escalates about beating up the big earner support mages. As Kush mutters, Maura retorts that his fists would hurt less than a mosquito bite, enraging the paladin. He swings a mighty punch, but in a flash of magical backlash, the blow connects squarely with his own face, sending him reeling in pain and humiliation. The inn erupts into a full-blown brawl as Kush is sent flying backward from the impact of his own punch. Maura effortlessly dodges his clumsy grab, her movements fluid and controlled. Seeing this, an enraged Melissa charges forward, screaming at Maura for getting carried away just because she has large breasts. Melissa's attack misses its mark completely, smashing a wooden chair to splinters, as Maura vanishes in a blur, leaving only her cape behind. Before Melissa can react, Maura reappears behind her, her eyes blazing with fury. With a sharp slap, she sends Melissa stumbling, proving she is far more than just a support mage. Unleashing her full wrath, Maura screams, "Shut up, you worms!" Norris and Luke rush in, pleading for her to stop, but their warnings are useless. With a contemptuous flick of her hands, she unleashes a wave of force that sends both men flying, their bodies thudding hard against the floor. In a final, decisive display of power, Maura leaps high into the air, her form silhouetted against the ceiling. She comes crashing down with immense force, crushing the last of her former teammates underfoot in a devastating impact. The other patrons can only stare in stunned silence as the S-rank party is single-handedly dismantled. Feeling refreshed, Maura calmly approaches the innkeeper, apologizing for the mess and offering to compensate for the damages. With her former party lying unconscious and defeated on the floor around her, she smiles sweetly and adds one final, crucial detail. "Please consider this my resignation," she says, officially severing her ties with the disgraced wolf pack. The scene shifts to Gail, now running a stall in a new, more affluent part of the city. A noblewoman browses his wares, calling his antiques truly eccentric. Gail cheerfully explains that one lizard-like piece is a basilisk lantern, which she finds fascinating, before he proudly announces that it is, in fact, a cursed lantern, causing the woman to shriek in fright. The noblewoman's mustachioed butler, Sebastian, quickly steps between her and Gail, chastising the young man for trying to sell a cursed item to a high-class lady. He dismisses the lantern as a mere piece of interior decoration. When a confused Gail asks for an explanation, the butler furiously insists that he not be absurd. As the butler continues his tirade, the noblewoman whispers that she finds Gail handsome, revealing she paid even more than his already high asking price for the charm effect lamp. Gail reflects on his successful sales of cursed items, though his combat consumables remain untouched. Exhausted from the day, he begins to pack up his stall. Gail ponders his creations, noting that while people find them curious and interesting, no one has ever genuinely said they liked them. As he prepares to close up for the day, a young woman with light hair approaches his stall. It is the same mysterious figure who had been watching him from a distance before. Gail observes the new customer, guessing she might be a noble in disguise due to her simple yet elegant attire. The woman murmurs that his designs are all weird, but then her face breaks into a wide, radiant smile. With genuine enthusiasm, she declares, "I love stuff like this," leaving Gail utterly speechless. The young woman picks up a peculiar ring, exclaiming how cute it is, realizing this is the first time someone has truly complimented his designs. Beaming with pure joy, Gail is overcome with emotion. Believing she must be a noble who went to great lengths to disguise herself, he decides not to ruin her day by being too polite, and offers her a discount as he packs up. With a charming wink, the woman explains that she left her wallet at the palace and has little money on her. Flustered but completely won over, Gail insists she just pay whatever she can, considering it a reward for being his first true fan. She insists on paying, holding out her hand to offer him what she has. Gail is stunned into silence when she places a large gold coin in his palm, an astronomical sum for a single ring, and walks away. Grinning, the woman waves a cheerful goodbye, leaving Gail to stutter that she's so cute. His warm feelings are cut short by a cold shudder as he spots a menacing figure watching him from a nearby alley. The moment the woman is out of sight, Gail is struck by a wave of panic. He realizes he forgot to explain the ring's curse or give her a dispel talisman. He whirls around, searching frantically, but the street is suddenly empty. She has vanished completely, leaving him to collapse in despair over his mistake. Gail tries to calm himself, reasoning that the ring's curse is not too dangerous, just a 200% defense boost and instant kill resistance, though she won't be able to remove it. He decides he must find her to apologize and give her the talismans. A chilling thought then crosses his mind. When she mentioned the palace, she couldn't have possibly meant the actual royal palace, could she? Meanwhile, the mysterious young woman is seen trying to slip down an alleyway before she is forcefully grabbed by a stern-looking handmaiden. The handmaiden scolds her for her behavior, demanding she watch her hands. A second servant reports from behind, confirming, "Yes, ma'am, we have her." The young woman, kicking and screaming, "No!" is unceremoniously dragged away by two palace guards. The grand palace looms in the background, confirming her identity. Back inside the grand building, the handmaiden lectures her sternly, imploring her to be less trouble and to keep her high-ranking position in mind. Seated primly in an elegant dress, the young woman is formally introduced as Princess Carla. Despite the regal setting and her refined attire, her cheeks are puffed out in a stubborn, childish pout. As Gail walks through the city, he is suddenly stopped by a member of the royal guard, who is searching for a suspicious young man with black hair running a stall, instantly twisting his face into that of a goofy old man. The guard, completely fooled, apologizes for the mistake and moves on. Thinking fast, Gail uses a dispel talisman on himself. Gail reverts to his normal appearance with a sigh of relief, wondering why the royal guard is after him, and deciding he should leave town soon. His moment of crisis is interrupted by a group of children who witnessed his magical trick. Amazed, they crowd around him, begging him to do it again and again. Within the royal palace, a stern handmaiden lectures Princess Carla, who stubbornly hides in her bed, clutching a pillow for comfort. "Princess," the handmaiden insists, "that ring is a blasphemy against the church." The handmaiden's sharp glance reveals her deep as she continues, arguing the importance of interacting with the common folk. A clear jab at the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist slams her hands on the counter in a fury. Maura is one of the best support mage in the entire. A pair of adventurers look on, confused by the outburst, questioning if she's. The receptionist's rant continues as she seethes with regret, lamenting that she was the one who recommended Maura to what she had mistakenly believed was. Gail is stunned to learn how highly regarded the mage, overhearing the commotion from a nearby table. As the conversation shifts to him, his ear twitches with. The woman continues her praise, stating she can't even begin to comprehend how a Cursificer, as she had blushed deeply, unable to express just how valuable his. A memory surfaces of him thinking she was just a casual customer, but the reality was the receptionist swivels to face the battered members of the wolf pack. "Do you see now?" she asks coldly, informing them that before any loan can be considered, they a scuffed-up Koosh roars that they'll have their "Let's go!" Luke yells, eager to find quests they can actually clear, and Norris agrees to avoid S-rank jobs. As they stomp out of the guild, Koosh furiously shouts, "Shut up!" silencing it. Gail listens to the chatter about the S-ranks, a concerned expression on his face as he thinks that this isn't how he pictured them. He's troubled by the rumors of him cursing them, especially since he's already dispelled everything. Deciding it's best to leave before he runs into them, he finishes and heads. His departure is interrupted by the clanking of armor as two men rush past, yelling for each other. "What's the big rush? We under attack, sir?" one of the guards asks as they hurry through the street. The other explains that Miss Vivian and the princess are at each other's throats again like two cats in a bag. Hearing that all hands are needed to stop them, Gale muses that it doesn't seem like a job for them. As he rounds a corner, his tattered clothes whipping in the wind, he stops dead in his eyes wide with sudden realization. Gale looks up at the sign of a tailor's shop, a thoughtful expression on his face. It's a special occasion, he thinks to himself. The bell above the door clatters as he steps inside the quiet. With a soft thud, he places a simple sword. The palace is thrown into chaos as guards struggle to restrain Vivian, who pleads for calm while another attendant cries. From beneath her bedsheets, Princess Carla lets out an angry. A sudden, chilling realization washes over Vivian as she shivers. A flashback reveals the moment it happened. An eager princess as a strange energy, sending the attendants into a "How dreadful, princess," an old official cries, pleading with her to remove the ring at once. Carla struggles against the curse. With a crucial meeting moments away, a knight raises her sword as Vivian's eye, declaring there's no choice but to take the entire finger. And the guards outside shout in alarm, "Defend!" The grand doors swing open to reveal Princess Carla and her retinue as a voice announces the One of the delegates notices her neatly bandaged finger, asking if she had an but she laughs it off while her attendants whisper about hiding it with a ribbon. Unaware of the morning's chaos, the delegates shower her with compliments. Carla graciously offers her guests tea, but the lead delegate waves it off, saying it. Instead, she presents a large crate, offering to let them sample some of her high-quality teas and delicious. Carla's eyes sparkle with delight at the thought of sweets from the as the crate is opened to reveal a mountain of confetti. The delegate smiles, noting they brought quite a flashback shows Vivian standing amidst the bouquet and trinkets that fill Princess Carla's. "I just can't understand why you like these kinds of things," she sighs, remarking that the princess's tastes prove she still has a long way to go. She then reminds the princess of her important meeting with the delegation, urging her to get ready for the day. The friendly facade of the delegates shatters as they draw crossbows, revealing themselves. "Don't worry, the poison takes effect instantly." The royal guards shout to protect the princess as the attackers. As Carla and her court look on in shock, a volley of bolts flies toward her. An assassin. As the guards cry out her name, Princess Carla screams, instinctively shielding her face. A wave of shimmering energy erupts around her just as the bolts are about to hit. The projectiles clang harmlessly against an invisible barrier, sparking and deflecting off the powerful. What?" the assassins stammer their attack. Vivian stares as the volley of bolts continues to ding harmlessly against the shield. "Give it another shot!" But the result is the lead assassin can only stare in utter disbelief, demanding, "Where did that barrier come from?" An assassin cries out in confusion. Inside her protective sphere, a realization dawns on Princess Carla, her eyes widening as she thinks, could it be him? Far away, Gale smiles to himself, recalling, "Charge! Arrest them!" and the royal guard moves swiftly to overpower the assassin. She rushes to the princess, asking if she's. Clenching her fist, Vivian curses, wondering why they would pretend to be from. "Thanks, I'm fine, Vivian," Carla replies with a smile, as her attendant urges her to safety, while the guards drag the attackers. In the magnificent Hall of the Stars, an appraiser named Arizel and Bishop Uriel. "What is this?" As they examine the artifact, Arizel asks the bishop if it's a bad one. No, it's not that, the old priest, explaining that the curse is of such high quality that it will be easy to dispel, concluding that its maker must be a true master. Bishop Uriel explains the ring's a curse of the highest order has been overlaid with a second, matching curse, perfectly eliminating all negative effects. As a confused Princess Carla listens, the appraiser Arizal leans in to take. Using his tool, he reveals the ring's unbelievable power. It not only triples her defense, but also grants. The room is filled with shocked gasps as Vivian stammers. "Wah!" Arizal holds, dramatically declaring it to be a cursed. Vivian immediately chastises him for holding the princess's hand, but the appraiser is lost in a fit of panting that he never thought he'd see such a marvelous cursed item in his life. Rubbing the fresh lump on his head, Arizal confirms that the legendary angel shield is known to possess. Vivian nods, recalling that one of the church's own holy relics has. Bishop Uriel, however, remarks that he has never heard of such a powerful enchantment being placed on something. The full implication dawns on as she names the only other artifact with such power, the Empire's greatest treasure. The Heart of the Demon Lord, a legendary item from the Empire, is said to grant its wielder incredible buffs from stat increases. However, this monstrous power comes at a terrible price, for the artifact constantly drains the user's life force, killing them if the curse is. As Vivian gravely concludes, in exchange for a powerful boon, one must pay. The memory flashes back to Carla's chambers, where the princess was admiring her new ring. "Hutch, are you listening?" In her frustration, she grabs the ring and slides it onto the princess's finger, pleading with her not to wear it to the meeting, while Carla insists she only wants. At that moment, a strange energy surges through the ring. It is a universal truth that great power always comes at a. Staring at the ring on her finger, the princess realizes that because it asks for almost nothing in return, it must be an artifact that stands alongside, or perhaps. Back in the Hall of the Stars, she turns to her handmaiden. "Vivian," she asks, "do you remember that young man?" As understanding dawns, a shocked Vivian. "I want you to bring him to me so that I can thank him," the princess declares, her cheeks puffed with determination. Vivian, misunderstanding completely, beams with righteous fury. "You want me to find him and cut him to ribbons?" she asks eagerly, earning a Carla gazes down at the ring, her expression softening as she thinks that though it may be cursed, it saved her life. And a simple tray holds a delicious meal of grilled fish, rice. So good," Gail said. Seated alone at a table in the bustling Adventurers Guild, he reflects on his recent fortune. He had been worried about going it alone, but he's doing surprisingly well and realizes he might have a knack for this new life. Gail inspects his fork, contemplating his current situation. He knows there's only so much he can do by relying on whatever and he'll need to stock up on proper materials. Finishing his meal, he decides it might be time to take on. With a new sense of purpose, he heads for the stairs. He clears his tray. The former members of the wolf pack crowd the guild counter, demanding money. "WES rank," Kush bells. The receptionist maintains her polite smile, beginning, "Well, you see." She then asks if they've even met with the client for their S-rank quest, noting a complaint has already been filed about their failure to even show up, leaving them to stammer that there's still time. The receptionist smacks the counter, cutting off their excuses about an unexpected monster. "You mean the ogre?" she asks pointedly. "Wasn't it just a regular ogre?" When Kush her smile turns menacing, revealing that she knows everything, including how they aggroed that same ogre all the way. "Do you think we're blind?" Holding up an invoice, the receptionist informs them that the guild paid for the damages they caused at the Silver Wolf Pavilion, meaning. She adds that Maura's departure after only a few days is an From the stairs, Gail watches the scene unfold, thinking how badly. Just then, a stern woman with reddish-brown hair approaches the counter and asks, "So, what?" Kush slams his fist on the counter, his face contorted. "Grr, this is all Gail's doing." Watching from above, a bewildered Gail thinks, "What the hell?" Ballista whines that he cursed them, severely reducing, while Norris complains that Maura was complete. The stern official sighs, confirming their story is at least consistent, but she can only wonder what is truly. Birds chirp a cheerful morning tune, as a young man named Gail triumphantly presents his new adventuring attire. With a proud laugh, he strikes a pose, showcasing his custom-made gear, complete with a practical cape with hidden pockets, tough clothes with extra storage, gauntlets, and sturdy boots with embedded shin guards. He feels pretty good about his new look, ready to face the world on his own terms. For luggage, I've got my cursed tools and my handmade dagger, Gail thinks to himself. Anything else he might need, he figures he can get wherever he ends up. Adjusting his pack as he prepares to head out, he takes one last look over the sprawling cityscape. As the brisk morning air fills his lungs, the residents just beginning to stir for the day. Gazing out over the royal capital, Gail feels a strange sense of finality, realizing this could be the last time he ever lays eyes on the city. As he walks down a quiet, narrow alleyway, he hears a faint noise and turns his head in curiosity. A shiver runs down his spine as he senses something just around the corner, wondering what could be making that sound. Gazing out over the royal capital, Gail feels a strange sense of finality, realizing this could be the last time he ever lays eyes on the city. As he walks down a quiet, narrow alleyway, he hears a faint noise and turns his head in curiosity. While grabbing a quick bite to eat from a street vendor, Gail's peaceful morning is shattered by sudden chaos. "Hey, we need more men here too," a guard shouts as armored figures rush past. Gail flinches as the capital army and even the royal knights thunder through the streets, their presence a mystery. He barely avoids a collision, muttering an apology as the heavily armored men stampede by. Gail's eyes fall upon a wanted poster nailed to a wall. The description is damning: a dirty-looking late-teen male with black hair who is walking around hawking tasteless accessories. As knights nearby discuss their search, he realizes with growing horror that the description, while insulting, fits him perfectly. This time it can't be me, he thinks in denial, insisting he has great taste. Suddenly, a knight on horseback blocks Gail's path, his voice sharp with suspicion. "Young man, you pretty much fit the profile," the knight observes, eyeing him up and down. Just as a spark of panic ignites in Gail, the knight dismisses him, noting his clothes are too well put together. His partner agrees, adding that the suspect's accessories are supposedly horrid, and this young man doesn't appear to be selling anything. "All right, you're free to go," the knight declares, and with a quick dash, Gail makes his escape, leaving the city's drama behind. "I'm an idiot for reminiscing for even a second about this dumb city," he grumbles, determined to get out as fast as possible. He arrives at the city gates, where dozens of passenger wagons are lined up, presenting him with a world of possibilities and the question of where to go next. Consulting a nearby map, Gail weighs his options: the merchant town of Imbalance, the military town of Fort Gracias, or perhaps the old city of Gronstadt. His deliberations are interrupted by a wagon driver's loud call. "Listen up! We've still got 2 open spots," the driver announces, offering a deal passage to the agricultural town of Farm Edge for just 1 silver. The word farming instantly conjures a vivid, drool-worthy image of fresh produce, crisp vegetables, and plump eggs in Gail's mind. His stomach rumbles in anticipation. "Excuse me, sir, I'll take one," he calls out excitedly, raising his hand high. Just as he does, he notices a hooded figure beside him has also raised their hand for the last spot. Gail turns and is surprised to see a familiar face beneath the hood. "You're that guy," a woman's voice says. "It's Maura, the mage who replaced him in the wolf pack." She pulls back her hood, confirming his suspicion, and introduces herself properly as Maura Glaris. Flustered, Gail remembers her from his dismissal and fumbles his words, awkwardly complimenting her pretty face and her massive presence. As the wagon trundles along the dusty road, Maura gives Gail a disappointed side-eye. "You're just as bad as everyone in the wolf pack," she scolds, making him throb with embarrassment. He can only look away as she continues her silent judgment. The long journey continues, and soon a tired Gail lets out a large yawn. Dozing off, Gail's head droops and lands softly against Maura, who immediately shoves him away. "You're too close," she snaps. He complains that there's no room, gesturing to the wagon packed tight with ironware, goods, and hired mercenaries. He glances at the headstrong girl beside him, realizing she must have quit the party very quickly after he left. Feeling awkward in the cramped space, Gail tries to establish some boundaries. Listen, I've got my feelings about the situation, and you have yours. Let's just try to stay out of each other's way, all right? He suggests. But she cuts him off, clarifying she has no feelings for Kush whatsoever. His theory debunked, he asks the obvious question. So, why'd you quit? Maura sighs. Maura sighs, turning the question back on him. I should be the one asking you how you stayed in that shitty party for so long. She reveals the truth. Kush seriously lost a fight to an ogre, and the other three were completely useless, unable to properly swing a sword, sling a spell, or shoot an arrow. A stunned Gail can only lament his own poor judgment in ever joining such a trash party. So I need to get away from the royal capital for a bit, Gail explains. Thanks to them, the guild's got its eye on me. Maura nods, recalling how every time something went wrong, it was immediately Gail's fault. She apologizes for her former party's behavior, but he waves it off, telling her it's fine and to just call him Gail. As the wagon continues its journey, Gail glances at Maura again. Noticing she has very little luggage, she must have skipped town as soon as she quit. Reaching into his pack, he pulls out some bread and jerky. With a quick rustle, he begins slicing the food with his dagger. As the wagon continues its journey, Gail glances at Maura again, noticing she has very little luggage. She must have skipped town as soon as she quit. Reaching into his pack, he pulls out some bread and jerky. With a quick rustle, he begins slicing the food with his dagger. As the wagon continues its journey, Gail glances at Maura again, noticing she has very little luggage. She must have skipped town as soon as she quit. Reaching into his pack, he pulls out some bread and jerky. The mention of his stall jogs Maura's memory. She tells him about the chaos in the marketplace after he left, with people saying an artifact-class item had been found at a stall, sold by the princess herself. A horrified Gail realizes it was his stall and his item. He then panics, stammering that he left his wallet at the palace, meaning his stall, and is now broke. But Gail nervously denies it. Maura playfully asks if it could have been him who sold the artifact. No, you definitely don't, she agrees with a laugh, reasoning that he'd need some kind of sacred place to make something so powerful. He joins in her laughter, and they share a light-hearted moment of camaraderie, but Gail nervously denies it. Maura playfully asks if it could have been him who sold the artifact. No, you definitely don't, she agrees with a laugh, reasoning that he'd need some kind of sacred place to make something so powerful. The world turns upside down as Gail is thrown forward, his face landing somewhere unexpectedly soft. "Oh, what happened?" a passenger cries out, as Maura warns him that his face doesn't belong there. "Orcs," another screams in terror. Gail realizes he's buried in her chest. They were very soft, he thinks. Before Maura declares, "Now is not the time." "They're attacking the wagon train," Maura observes grimly as Gail helps her up. The wagon train is under attack, and the screams of dying men fill the air. The scene outside is a massacre. A wounded man stumbles towards them, pleading for help, explaining that the guards are all dead. The other passengers are frozen in terror, convinced this is the end. A massive orc stomps towards their wagon. "Uh-oh, sounds like they've noticed us," Maura mutters. Gail quickly assesses the situation. He and Maura are the only ones with any battle experience, but they're both backliners. Inside, the other passengers huddle together, weeping in fear. Gail quickly assesses the situation. He and Maura are the only ones with any battle experience, but they're both backliners. He turns to Maura, asking, "Gail, you have a weapon, right?" "We don't have a choice," Maura states grimly, holding up her staff and a small knife. Gail confirms he has some debuff consumables and his dagger, but with no other options, they have to try. As two backliners, they can't do anything without a frontline fighter to protect them. They both acknowledge the recklessness of their plan, but the idea of dying without doing anything ticks me off. Maura says with a determined glint in her eye, confident in her support magic. "You can trust me," she declares. Gail nods, understanding completely. Understood. I'll take the front, he says, telling her to watch his back, and then apologizing for letting a woman do the fighting. But the idea of dying without doing anything ticks me off. Maura says with a determined glint in her eye, confident in her support magic. You can trust me, she declares. They're not expecting us to put up a fight, Gail strategizes. I'll rush in and take out at least one of them, jingling a few coins in his hand. As he prepares to move, Maura whips her staff around, casting a spell on the wagon. A faint, shimmering energy envelops the canvas cover. It's a barrier, Maura explains. Go on, I'll buff you in a second. With a cry of, got it, Gail dashes forward, impressed by her thoroughness. He unsheathes his dagger. As Maura prepares her next spell, its twin orbs glowing ominously. A nearby passenger looks on, trembling in fear and awe. As Gail grips his weapon, its true nature is revealed. The dagger is covered in dark, swirling patterns that pulse with a malevolent energy. Maura's eyes widen in absolute shock as she stares at the weapon. Wah! She stammers, her voice trembling. What is that? A torrent of dark, swirling energy erupts from the dagger, enveloping Gail in a menacing aura. The ground around him seems to wither and die as the black power crackles and writhes. His expression is grim and focused, his eyes narrowed as he prepares to unleash the full, terrifying power of a master Cursificer. A torrent of dark, swirling energy erupts from the ground, enveloping Gail in a menacing aura. His cape billows around him as the black power crackles and writhes, his expression grim and focused. He stands as a silhouette against the chaos, a master Cursificer preparing to unleash his full, terrifying power. Maura lays out their strategy with quiet urgency, her expression serious as she points to the cursed tools on the wagon floor, instructing Gail to use his items to slow down the enemies while she applies a buff. Once her magic takes full effect, she believes they can take on an ogre or two and kill as many as possible before they recover. The plan is simple, she explains. Gail agrees, his gaze determined as he says, yes, and finally remember, their goal is to buy time for a nearby patrol to notice the commotion. We only get one shot at this, Maura declares, her eyes narrowed with focus, admitting the initial plan has changed. She stares in shock at the dagger Gail now holds, its dark, pulsating energy causing her to cry out, what even is that dagger? And that mimicking aura? He casually dismisses it as a normal debuffing dagger, much to her disbelief. As Maura tells him to watch her back, he calmly tells her to hold on, his focus unbroken. With a sigh of resignation, Maura says, fine, whatever, and prepares to cast her spell. She explains that the spell lasts only a moment, but it makes up for that in sheer power. As a shimmering magic circle materializes at her feet, she slams her staff into the ground and unleashes a brilliant wave of energy, crying out, Omniboost! Empowered by the buff, Gail leaps into action with a triumphant shout of Rah! He hurls a cursed scroll with perfect aim, watching as it sails towards the group of unsuspecting ogres. He grins, declaring it a bullseye, as the scroll lands perfectly in their midst, its ancient runes beginning to glow with an ominous power. As Gail charges toward the ogres, Maura watches with a mix of concern and anticipation from the back of the wagon. The once relaxed monsters now look on in sheer terror, their bodies trembling and sweating as the scroll's power begins to take hold. Their casual demeanor has completely evaporated, replaced by a primal, overwhelming fear. The world around them warps into a nightmarish hellscape, the ground littered with countless skulls and bones. The sudden, horrifying illusion grips both Maura and the ogres in its terrifying grasp. Maura can only gasp in shock and horror at the grim transformation, a testament to the cursed item's incredible power. Maura trembles, her mind reeling as she wonders what kind of cursed tool could create such a terrifying effect. The ogres are completely paralyzed with fear, quivering and grunting as the illusion overwhelms their senses. Realizing the curse only seems to be affecting the enemy monsters, she still fears it might affect her too if she isn't careful. Just as Gail dashes forward into the fray. You bastards! I'm taking all of you with me, Gail roars, charging headfirst into the terrified monsters. Gail? Wait a sec. Maura calls out desperately, trying to warn him that her buff hasn't fully taken effect yet. But it's too late. He leaps high into the air, his cursed dagger poised to strike the nearest foe. Maura is left utterly speechless, a confused, "Huh?" escaping her lips, landing a devastating blow. The creature lets out a gargled cry of pain as dark, shadowy energy erupts from the wound, its form dissolving under the force of the attack. With a sinister grin, Gail descends upon a terrified, immobilized monster. With a powerful war cry, Gail moves with blinding speed, becoming a blur of motion as he carves through the monsters, while another looks on in helpless shock. A close-up on an unseen gauge reveals that Maura's buff has now reached its full, incredible power. He unleashes a vicious slice that tears through one ogre. Haha, holy crap, your buffs are amazing, Maura. Gail laughs, exhilarated by the battle. Maura quickly refutes his praise, insisting it was all him, and that her buff did nothing. But as she stares at the lingering dark energy, she realizes this is no simple debuff. It's a potent curse that causes fear, reduced defense, and at the very least paralysis, a power she has never seen from a simple consumable. Maura continues her stunned analysis, her eyes fixed on Gail's weapon. She recognizes it as a legendary class magic dagger and is astounded that he calls it normal. She can see it has at least two powerful passive buffs: ignore defense and detection interference, allowing him to slice through his foes effortlessly. As she shouts that his claims are ridiculous, an oblivious Gail simply looks back at her and asks, "Oh." The scene briefly shifts, showing a different version of Gail, glowing brightly within Maura's magic circle. "Whoa, so this is what it feels like to be buffed by a top-ranked support mage," he exclaims, feeling like he can accomplish anything. A confused Maura looks on, remarking that he seemed to be doing just fine on his own before. His confidence and newfound power are a puzzling sight. "Frick!" Maura cries out in panic, realizing she was so distracted watching him that she forgot to maintain the flow of mana, causing the buff to run out. Gail's stats instantly return to normal. As she begins to apologize, he cuts her off with a confident laugh, declaring that, with their combined might, no one can stand against them, leaving her even more baffled by his strange behavior. With a savage grin, Gail declares, "One more to go," as he slashes through the last of the initial group. But just as victory seems assured, a new trio of larger, more formidable monsters looms up from behind the pile of skulls. A startled Gail shouts, "Where'd you guys come from?" as one of the beasts lets out a terrifying guttural roar. In that case, Gail thinks, reacting instantly, he flings a handful of small, skull-shaped projectiles at the new enemies. The cursed items shatter on impact, releasing a shimmering wave of magical energy that completely engulfs the surprised monsters. The hulking monsters are frozen in place, their movement slowed to an absolute crawl. "This is amazing," Gail exclaims, marveling at the effect. He says that all he did was apply a slow debuff, but thanks to her buff, they look completely frozen. He skids to a stop, amazed by the power he mistakenly attributes to her. "Listen to what I'm trying to tell you," Maura says, her frustration boiling over as she tries to make him understand. She explains that their speed has been reduced by 90% and questions how he can seriously call that a simple slow. Her eyes widen in shock as she sees him preparing his final, devastating move, a crackle of energy surrounding his blade. With an expression of intense focus, Gail grips his dagger, its cursed energy crackling around his hand. The blade pulses with dark power as he plunges it deep into the ground. A powerful shockwave of magic ripples outwards from the point of impact, shaking the very earth. Shadowy tendrils erupt from the ground, ensnaring the final monster and holding it completely immobile. As the creature struggles in vain, Gail braces himself, pulling back his arm for a powerful, decisive thrust. The sheer force of his preparation distorts the air around him, a silent promise of the immense power about to be unleashed. A massive column of dark, destructive energy erupts from the ground, completely obliterating the final monster and sending a shockwave that crumbles the pile of skulls. Maura stares in stunned disbelief, muttering, "Insta-kill? Insta-kill?" Gale, wiping his brow, casually wonders if it's just an enchantment. Maura knows better, recognizing it as an ultra-rare ability that cannot simply be made. As Maura stares in awe, Gale turns to her, his face bruised but beaming with a wide, triumphant grin. "We did it!" he exclaims joyfully. In a burst of excitement, he grabs her hands and spins her around, declaring that her support magic is absolutely phenomenal, leaving a flustered Maura to stammer out a surprised, "With the battle won," Gale raises a hand in a cheerful wave to the stunned passengers, who cautiously peek out from the safety of the wagon. They slowly emerge, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief at what they've just witnessed. Later that night, under a vast, starry sky, Gale turns to Maura and begins to speak. "You know, Maura." Gathered around a crackling campfire, Gale admits to Maura that it was the first time he had ever truly gone toe-to-toe with a monster, and he was honestly pretty scared. A surprised Maura questions this, reminding him of his long tenure in Cassius' S-rank party. He looks down at the fire, explaining that while he was there from the start, he's just a Cursificer, implying his role was never on the front lines. Gale continues to downplay his own abilities, suggesting that his old party made the right call letting him go since he's not suited for menial labor. Maura quickly cuts him off, telling him he thinks too little of himself, and rephrasing his words to say he's talented at everything, even making the delicious dandelion coffee she's sipping. This praise causes Maura to slump over in a fit of self-deprecation, muttering that she's the one who's completely useless in a fight, earning a confused look from Gale. "All right, don't forget to get some sleep. I'm heading to bed," Maura announces, thanking Gale for the coffee. He wishes her a good night, generously offering his bag for her to use as a pillow. As she walks away, the other passengers, now relaxed, share a drink with him, and a gentle, peaceful smile spreads across his face. Gazing up at the star-filled sky, Maura reflects on Gale's earlier words. "Talented me?" she whispers to herself, a new thought taking root. She recalls the intensity of the battle, acknowledging that without her magic, they couldn't have won. Even so, she admits she has never thought of herself in that way before. A flashback shows Maura standing awkwardly on the sidelines as her former party celebrated a victory, making her feel disconnected from their success. The memory fades, replaced by the image of Gale fighting fiercely against the monsters. A small smile touches her lips as she realizes, "I think fighting those monsters actually felt kind of good." Leaning back against a large rock, Gale lets out a quiet chuckle under the starry sky. "Heh, Maura's too nice," he thinks to himself with a fond smile. He watches as she settles down for the night, using his bag as a pillow just as he had offered. The gentle trundling of the wagon and a driver's voice announcing their destination is in view wakes a sleeping Gale. Maura gives him a sharp jab to the ribs, telling him to come on. As they both look out from the back of the wagon, "This is," Gale begins. A sense of wonder fills the air. Maura finishes his thought with a simple, knowing yes. Stepping down from the wagon, they are greeted by a breathtaking view of a town nestled in a valley of rolling green hills. A shared sense of purpose and excitement fills them. Together, they break into a run, their capes billowing behind them as they head towards the welcoming sight of the town of Farm Edge.